Hello, listeners. My name is Cliff Ratza. I'm the author of two ongoing series of novels, the Lightning Brain series and its sequel, the Keeper series. And in addition to being an author and a writing coach, I teach at universities and have a consulting business. If you would like to learn more about me, my books, or my writing coach activities, please contact Prime Solutions via lightningbrainseries.com website. Now, I try to make videos that I think authors and writers and most people might enjoy listening to. Some of my recent podcasts touch on topics connected to the Ukrainian war. This one will also. And I try to cover material that you might not see on the news or in YouTube or other videos. I figure that if I can't find a different point of view, there's no reason for me to add something that you could find elsewhere. Well, the title of this video is What the Ukrainian War Teaches Us About Civilization. Civilization's thin veneer can wear away. Like most of us, I get caught up in the Ukrainian war news and videos. And every now and then I have to stop to realize that I'm watching in real time World War III, which is similar to a proxy war in which the Ukraine is fighting for what we consider the right side of civilization, and Russia represents all that is wrong. Consider it a war pitting democracy against tyrannical autocracy, a war pitting the civilized nations against those still rooted in a more primitive, harsher, and ruthless time. We are witnessing a growing polarization, not seen since the early days of the Cold War. The internet, social media, and technological advances in news reporting are bringing the battle and all its ramifications into our living rooms. And what we see is appalling. The brutality and inhumanity that Russia has unleashed make us question how much progress civilization and culture have made. I imagine that most people have read the book Lord of the Flies by William Golding. It chronicles what happens when a group of adolescent boys stranded on a deserted island during a war revert to savagery and primitive behavior. The book's allegorical message is this: civilization is merely a thin veneer coating man's hard-to-change, flawed nature. Golding published the book over 50 years ago, and civilized societies proudly point out the progress we have made collectively. But I would like to pull together what I have read or watched recently to make a syntopical analysis, and that means some thoughtful comparisons that might make us think twice. I recently watched a PBS Frontline episode titled Putin's War, which gave a detailed chronology of Putin's rise to power. The narrator pieced together a sequence of events and interviews with Putin that, when viewed through a retrospective lens, should have alerted the civilized world about Putin's plans to negate so-called international peace and progress by reconstructing a Russian autocracy. But as one of the newscasters said, Putin treated the West like a dumb salamander that didn't have enough sense to jump out of a pot of water as the temperature slowly built. Well, neuroscientists tell us that the human brain is much the same since caveman days. Not enough time has gone by for our brain's evolution to make improvements in our controlling genes. Our instincts and emotions and cognition are pretty much the same as primitive man. But we like to think that our social memes might compensate. And what are social memes? They are the elements of a culture and a cultural system of behavior that may be considered a characteristic passed from one individual or another by non-genetic means, especially by imitation, and ultimately build a cultural or national DNA that links the entire population into a supra-being. In other words, a country or a civilization has an identity that can evolve and adjust faster than our human DNA. Well, consider these current events. A Wall Street Journal article describing how Putin is hiring a Russian mercenary team called the Wagner Group to insulate himself from the Ukrainian massacres they commit. China's recent heavy-handed zero COVID-19 intolerance that has shut down parts of the country, even though many citizens don't want that. Or Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson sidestepping his own rules about no parties or gatherings. He's the first Prime Minister to be convicted of breaking the law while in power. Or think about the upcoming presidential election in France, pitting incumbent President Emmanuel Macron, a more centrist political person, against a more radical conservative Marine Le Pen. Analysts say that if she wins, much of Western Europe's political progress will take a big step backward. And recent articles in the Atlantic magazine spotlight how autocracy is threatening democracy and how the Ukrainian war is a test of wills between progress and regress. I will end my talk by mentioning two books written by David Mamet, a highly respected American playwright, filmmaker, and author. He won a Pulitzer Prize and received Tony nominations for his plays Glengarry Glen Ross and Speed the Plow. When younger, he believed in the progressive, liberal left ideals, but events throughout the last 30 years have shown him that they don't work. His book, The Secret Knowledge, describes how liberal left ideals are dismantling the American culture. And his most recent book, Recessional, which just came out, confirms how we continue taking steps backward. Its review in the April 5th Wall Street Journal and Mamet's interview in the following weekend edition adds to what he says and thinks. And please consider this. Putin's Ukrainian war has pitted each country against one another in order to get oil and gas and other basic supplies such as food and medicine and, surprise, surprise, computer chips. And economic concerns are pushing back all the green energy, that's solar energy in electric vehicles and in windmills, and climate change policies as well. Human nature's flaws. Everyone is looking out for their own survival, seem to be on the rise. And nations are looking out for their own best interests, regardless of the toll on others. This predisposition of human nature is still lurking just beneath the thin veneer of civilization. Well, is there something positive we can add? Maybe this. The interviews of Ukrainian people, politicians and soldiers, sound like they see Putin and his corrupt government for what it really is. And they are telling the West, we can't bargain with him. If the civilized world wants to salvage what it still has, it better help the Ukrainian people win the war. And if you would like to hear some sobering thoughts about what type of future awaits us, you might want to listen to this YouTube video. Daniel Kahneman and Yuval Noah Harari in conversation, or this one. Conversation between Harari and Yale historian Timothy Snyder. They pull no punches. So that will end my simple scholar syntopical summary of what's going on. And I hope you found at least some of it helpful and interesting. Thank you for listening, and bye-bye until next time.